If you want to master Claude Code, you need to understand which are the 9 building blocks that you can use. These are the 80-20 of the entire system. And once you know them, you can customize Claude Code to do anything, whether that's a coding or a non-coding task. So with that said, let's get started. The 9 building blocks that we have are organized into 3 categories with 3 elements each. So you can think about that as a simple 3x3 grid. The first category makes up the capabilities building blocks. So by default, Claude can read files, can write code, can run commands, but what if you wanted to ask Claude Code to read your email? What if you wanted to create a ROI? What if you wanted to create a client proposal or research a topic in the background? So this is what capabilities building blocks are for. Those essentially enable your Claude Code to do new things. Let's start with skills. A skill is like training someone to perform a specific task. You give them a specific process that they can follow, and once they are trained, you just say, perform this specific process, and the work is actually executed. You don't have to explain how every single time because the knowledge is already there and they have that specific knowledge that they can follow. And the same works with skill. So with that said, let me show you a couple of examples of how they work. We are now within a Claude Code workspace that we will use. By the way, you can have access to the same workspace within my free group of AI workspace builders. You can find the first link in the description. The skills that we have over here are essentially 2, and all the skills are within the same folder, which is .claude/skills. Over here, we have a quick explain skill, and then we have a ROI calculator. Let's use the quick explain first and ask something like explain compound interest. Now, the system will be smart enough to recognize that we have a specific skill related to that, and it will ask to proceed with that specific skill. It will read the content of the file and will execute the operation in exactly the following format that we give. So compound interest, what, interest calculated, why, how. This is just an example. As you can see, the skills are auto-called by the system based on the capability that the skill has. Another more advanced example is an ROI calculation. So I would like to do a ROI calculation for a client of an automation related to list building. Can you please create a ROI calculation for that and for that specific client? Please add that into the main part of the workspace. This is an example of a prompt that I would ask. The system will already know that they need to use the ROI calculator, and it will start with the creation of that. This specific skill is dynamic, and so it will ask, for example, is this pre-sale or post-sales? So let's say this is pre-sale. We have context, a general idea, and then we have a small company size. Let's submit the answer and see. So the automation just finished and we created 2 different documents, ROI analysis and ROI analysis that is directly client related. Within each document, we have different fields such as an executive summary, a current state analysis, what could be automated, what could be the calculation for time savings, the value, the pricing recommendation. Obviously, this is only for internal facing documents. But yeah, on the other document over here, we have the document that could be sent directly for the client. All of these documents were generated because we have a specific structure in place within the skill that makes that possible. So let me show you what the structure would look like. The structure here is the following. Every single skill will go into the skills folder, which is within the .claude folder. And it will have a couple of components. It will have a skill.md file, which is the main file that would contain the information of the skill itself. But it could also have different other components, such as modules that define the different steps. It could have scripts that would automate specific processes. An example for the ROI analysis could be we could have a script that would create the PDF version of the ROI analysis to send to the client. And we could also have templates such as the ROI analysis document, for example. Now, if we go within the skills, we can see that the 2 skills are a little bit different. On the quick explain, what we have is we have the quick explain skill. At the top level, what we also have is the name of the skill and then the description of the skill. These are elements that are always loaded with every single instance of Claude Code. And so when you say something like, what is X, explain X, or how does X work, the system is smart enough to recognize that it needs to use the following skill over here. And so it needs to read this specific file and execute the information that are present within this specific file. Now, this is a single file skill. So we'll just have a single skill that can be executed. But if we look at the ROI analysis, for example, we have multiple components within. So the ROI analysis is made up of different operations that we need to do, for example. We have discovery operation. So how do we extract the opportunity? We have calculations. So how do we calculate time saving and pricing and value, sorry. We have pricing, and then we have output. And all of them are divided into modules. So this is, for example, the calculation module. So in this way, you can think about a skill as a set of different processes that are defined within and make up a full workflow, such as creating an ROI analysis, analyzing some emails, do all sort of different things similar to that. So the biggest advantage of skills is that they are automatic and Claude automatically decides when to use them. But sometimes you don't want automaticity, you want control. You want to trigger things on demand based on your workflow and based on when you want. And that is what commands are actually for. So you can think of commands as keyboard shortcuts. So every time you type a specific command, you trigger a specific set of actions that you want to take. So let me show you a couple of examples here. So the first example could be a daily task document or a daily task process. So at the start of a day, we want to type this daily task / command, run this, and this will go over the things that are present within the daily task.md and then execute on that. So in this example, it will give me what is the current plan for today. Want to update this or start fresh. So let's say, let's update this. And the system will go over and ask me for a specific question. So what are we actually doing today? Deep work, let's say recording YouTube video. It will ask me for any meeting. So let's say I have a meeting at 10 a.m. So in the end, it created the actual plan for today based on the input that we give them. As you can see, this is a very input-based command that would go back and forth by Claude Code and us to ask different things. We can also run different commands, which are, for example, a Standup command. And if we execute that, we would have the things that we did yesterday and then the things that we need to do today, as well as the blockers. So let me show you what is the structure looking like for each of these tasks. Here's, for example, the stand-up, where we ask something very simple, generate a stand-up update based on recent activity. What it can do is it can read the different document, so we can instruct the system to read different .md files and then generate the specific stand-up. This is just an example. In the daily task, instead, we were asked for specific questions, so this is more iterative based, but within commands, we can ask to read other files, we can ask to execute scripts, or we can ask also to execute skills if we really wanted to. The beauty about commands is that we can add a lot of things within. We can add the ability to read files, so read, for example, the daily brief.md document. We can add the ability to execute specific scripts if we have the scripts, or we can add the ability to use different skills. So if you think about that, the possibility here is that you can have a command which is a / proposal command that would execute the ROI analysis, and it would execute another skill, which could be, for example, a Gmail skill that would create an email for a person and send that. So every single component from skills to command to all the other that we see is easily composable, and we can build on top of each of them. Now, the beauty of both skills and commands is that they both run in your main conversation. But what if you wanted to work on something in the background while you keep doing other things? And that is what agents are for. So you can think about spawning an agent, such as hiring a specific consultant. So that consultant will work independently in their own space outside of your own workspace, and then they will report back once they are done. You can say something such as research this topic while I keep working on something else, and then the agent will research that and it will give you back the responses. So let's see an example of a researcher agent, for example. We can ask something simple such as use the researcher agent to research the top 3 note-taking apps and compare their features. So in this way, what will happen is all the context will be stored away from the conversation. The research agent will be launched. So as you can see, it will say, I'll launch the research agent. A task will be created, and then everything will be done outside of this specific conversation. We might see what are some specific things that might be happening, such as web research, different things like that, but the agent will execute alone all these different tasks, and then it will give us back the responses at the end and report back. One thing that you have to understand is when you are saying launch a agent, a sub agent over here, you are the one that is prompting the main agent, the Claude Code, and Claude Code is prompting the sub agent. And so the sub agent will report back to Claude Code, will report back for you. As you can see here, the research agent completed the comparison and created these different findings over here, as well as a quick recommendation. You can use agent for all sort of different things, such as parallel work. So if you want to have a different task of a research task or of all sort of different tasks, isolated context, so it doesn't actually pollute your main context window, which is a huge advantage when working with a long process, for example, where you need to do an in-depth research of a topic. They are also specialized in one specific thing, and they have specialization on that, and we will see that from the structure. And then also they have a tool restriction, and they can use a specified tool. And one real advantage of the tool restriction is that they can also use skills themselves. So if, for example, you could have a specific agent that is a proposal building agent, it will have a specific role, a specific process that it would use, and you could say launch the proposal building agent to create the proposal and then show me the final proposal file. For this instance, we have our researcher agent with what is the role of the agent, what are the capabilities that the agent has, and then what is the process as well as the output finding over here. So that's capabilities, skills, commands, and agent. 3 ways to teach Claude to new things. Now, let's talk about the second component, which is the configuration building blocks. Capabilities change what Claude can do. Meanwhile, configuration changes how Claude behaves. So you can think about like this. Maybe you might have the same employee, but they act differently based on the context. They act different based on who they are talking to, what mood they are in, what rules they are following. And so the configuration is exactly how you set that specific context for Claude and teach Claude how to behave in different ways. The foundation of the configuration building block is memory. So Claude, every time you start a new conversation, reads a set of instructions first. So every single time, the system has a system prompt, and then it will use whatever is present in a file called Claude.md. Claude uses this file and references this file in every single section. Here's an example of our own Claude.md file within the demo projects that we have. Within here, we have an explanation of what this workspace is about. So in this case, it's a demonstration workspace for the 9 Claude Code primitives. And then it will explain core principle about the explanation and about the instruction over here, as well as how to operate. So what are the different ways in which you can use this. And so the system here checks for skills first. So one thing that it does is every single time we launch a specific action, it will go into the skills folder and see whether we have a matching capability and use that. As well, we have the available commands, and then we have the available agents, as well as the project structure, so that Claude Code knows how to actually navigate this system over here. One beautiful thing about this is also you can make this modular as well. So if, for example, here I could add something like code standards. So when working with code, you can follow the rules that are present in .claude/rules/code style. So if we go within the Claude folders over here in the rules, we can see this code style rules file that will explain what are the specific ways in which we prefer to work with code. This can be used with code, but it could be used, for example, for contracts. So we could say when we are dealing with contracts, follow the contracts.md guide, where we have specific style guides that we use, or all sort of things like that. And another beautiful functionality always related to memory is rules that are path specific. So for example, over here, every time we have a file which is within this path, it will have a look at the specific rules that are present over here. So in this case, we have a source/API/TypeScript, which is a file. But if, for example, we would have a path which is a workspace path, we could say all the files that are present within this workspace follow these specific rules that we have. So this is another example and another way in which you can enhance the memory of the tool. So we see that memory tells Claude how to behave. Meanwhile, the next building block, which is setting, tell Claude what it's allowed to do. So you can think about that as any app permission on your phone. If you don't want an app to access your camera, you can deny that specific action. And the same happens within Claude Code, within a file that is called setting.json. So within this file, what we can do is we can allow certain actions to happen. We can ask for certain actions. So always ask us to say whether we want that to happen or not. And we can have deny. So that means not doing that specific action. So in that way, we can have full control of what Claude Code can do and what Claude Code cannot do without our approval. Now, the last component of the configuration is related to how Claude can communicate differently depending on the task. So this is a feature that is called output styles. Essentially, output styles are different ways of communicating based on the different tasks that we have. So if we want to explain something more, we want to set the output style to an explanation tone, or if we want to write a work email versus write a text to a friend, we would have a different way of responding. And that is what actually changes in the way that Claude Code responds. So let me show you within the interface over here. Now, the only problem about the output style is that currently this is a feature that is only available from within the terminal. So in order to have that, you need to access the terminal and set the output style. What you can do within there is you can type /output style, and then you can select the preferred output style that you want, depending on the task that you have. So in this instance, we have a default one, we have an explanatory one, a learning one, and then we can build our own custom output styles. So let me show you an example over here. Here we have the question of, can you explain compound interest to me, done using the default output style. So as you can see here, we would have a specific explanation that is created. Meanwhile, if we ask the same question using a different output style, which is a more explanatory one, the format is quite different. It's more explanatory, as the word suggests, right? And so this is how you can modify the output that you're getting. Now, what you can do within the .cloud file is you can create your own output styles. So this is an example of an explanatory mode, which is a way where you want specific structure to happen every single time you ask for a specific thing. So for this is, for example, done using code changes. So if you do any kind of coding work and you want every kind of code to be explained, this structure will be used for that. So it will give why the code was changed, what you did, how it actually works, and what to expect. So in this way, you can change the way the Claude responds depending on what is the way that you want Claude to respond. So those were the configuration building blocks, everything that changes how Claude behaves. Now, the last category is called integration, and this is all the different elements that either connect Claude to the outside world using external services that trigger automated action, or that give you the possibility to share plugins and share skills, for example. The first element of this integration category are hooks. So hooks are kind of event triggers. You can think of that as any Zapier, Anyden, make.com, where if X action happens, then you can do that. So there are different ways in which you can use hooks within your system. All of them are automated action, and all of the different information are present within the settings.json file. So an example of an hook that is present over here is a post tool use. So what this actually does is every time Claude Code runs a tool, it will log that information. It will log the information. Basically, what we have here is we have a script, a file that every time Claude logs, every time Claude runs a command, a post tool use command, it will log that specific information. Now, this is just an example. You can also use that, for example, to call a voice agent that notices you when the system requires your input, or, for example, send a Slack message once a process finished running, all sort of things like that. So this is an example of a logs file where we can see all sort of information that was created based on the post tool use. This is a technical aspect of the hooks, but hooks can also be used in a practical way, for example, with notification, or with, for example, sending changes to a colleague once that happens, or yeah, logging all the information for future reference, for example. The next element that we have are MCPs, which is one of the most famous one. MCPs are essentially USB ports for your computer. So what you can do is you can plug a specific device, a specific service, and then your computer can use that. Now, MCP in some sense become outdated because of the advent of skills, but there are still use cases in which MCP could really be helpful. So an example that I have here is the Playwright MCP, which is a browser automation tool. So Cloud with the Playwright MCP can open website, click button, fill forms, take screenshots, all those different things like that. The difference between the MCP and the skills is the fact that the MCP is always available in every single conversation that you have within your Claude Code. Meanwhile, the skill needs to be invoked based on the specific context and based on the specific conversation. So if in whatever kind of conversation I would like to use the MCP, that is always ready and available within the context window. Meanwhile, for a skill, the skill needs to run first and execute. And now let's see the final component, which are plugins. So plugins essentially allow you to bundle your skills together and create a way to share that to multiple people. So for example, if I wanted to share my skill on ROI creation, ROI document creation that I showed you at the beginning, what we can do is we can create a plugin out of that, and you can go within your own instance of Claude Code, add a specific repo of that skill and install the same skill as mine in a easy and effortless way to share. So here we would have a specific structure of what a plugin would look like, and essentially within a plugin you can share all the other primitives. So you can think of as plugins as a tool reserved for sharing different things across um, different people, whether there is a team, for example, or another aspect. And one thing that I also believe is important when it comes to sharing plugins is that once a plugin is updated, all the people that have that plugin will have the updated version of that plugin as well. So that is also very cool thing, a cool feature, especially useful when you need to maintain different workflows and different things for teams and different aspects like that. So these were the actual 9 building blocks that you can use. One important thing though is that you need to have the right structure to put these blocks. So what you can do is you can check this video out here that shows you what is the structure that you can use for any kind of your AI workspaces going forward.